a longer drive, putting a couple more plays up might be nice.
Head coach Matt LaFleur said he doesn't plan to play the starters Sunday when they go to Denver to take on the Broncos for preseason game number 2.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
You may know Rural Mutual Insurance as the #1 farm insurer. But did you know they also offer competitive home, auto, business, and life insurance? They make it convenient to bundle your insurance while saving you time and money. Visit ruralmutual.com to learn more.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
Wisconsin had his final fall practice yesterday down at UW-Platteville, and Tyler Van Dyke got all first-team reps in their scrimmage. They now look ahead to August 30th when they host Western Michigan at Camp Randall Friday night for a kick under the lights at 8 o'clock. And the AP Top 25 poll is out. Wisconsin is currently unranked the first time since 2016. For the Wisconsin Sports Zone Network, I'm Ebo.
It was good to get back out there. It's been getting a little chippy in practice. It was good to go against somebody new, and I loved how our guys competed in all 3 phases, and I thought everybody made contributions.
This is where Wisconsin gathers to talk sports. Packers, Brewers, Badgers, Bucks. The Wisco Sports Show is on the air. Now, here's your host, Grant Bills.
I love sports cliches. There's so many of them. You hear a lot of them in press conferences with coaches, especially football coaches. Football is just a sport of cliches. One of my favorites is this time of year when teams either start to play preseason games or teams start to do joint practices. You hear this a lot where coaches will start saying things like, well, you know, it's nice to hit someone wearing another jersey. Or like, you know, we're getting a little sick of beating up on each other in practice. It's nice to beat up on someone else. Like you can set your watch. What is it? Second weekend of August, you can set your watch to it. Every year this time of year, whether it's a joint practice or a preseason game. I think the Packers have joint practices with Denver later this week, I think, right? If I read that correctly. I guarantee they'll say it again. Matt LaFleur will say it. Sean Payton will say, it's nice to beat up on someone else for a change. Like, I love sports cliches. You get them from football coaches. I think more so than baseball and football, mostly because I think football coaches are the least media savvy of all the coaches. Baseball managers, they talk to the media like 3 times a day, you know, on the field before the game, you know, in the office after the game, sometimes the media auditorium, like they're just always talking to the media. Football coaches, it's like pulling teeth. It's like, you guys got it easy. It's structured, it's scheduled, you're at the podium. That's why football coaches, they just beat you over the head with cliches. I think that's one of my favorites. If we were to do a power ranking of sports cliches, I think, well, it's just nice to beat up on someone else for a change in front of a joint practice or in front of a preseason game. I think it's one of my favorite sports cliches, or something that you can always count on a coach saying or a player saying. This is the Wisco Sports Show. My name is Grant Bills. I hope you had a great weekend. A lot to talk about tonight between the Packers. Obviously, they played their first preseason game. The Brewers, we might end up talking a little bit about the Olympics. Gold medal game was on Saturday. Maybe not. That's something we got into a little bit last week. I'd be more than happy to talk about it. I have a couple thoughts, but if you guys want to go there, when we get into taking some calls, be more than happy to go there with you. We can also talk about a big NFL story that broke today. Not Brandon Ayuk. We're still waiting on Brandon Ayuk. I contend that this is the most we've ever talked about a player who's not like great. Like, I think Brandon Ayuk is the worst possible player that we've ever talked about this much and spent this much time on. And that's not to say that he's bad. He's not bad. He's not Aaron Rodgers. Like, we talk about Aaron Rodgers and we talked about his availability in a potential trade last year for weeks. And we talked about it for years leading up to last year when we got into it for weeks. Brandon Ayuk, it's like, he's a nice player, but we're treating this like it's LeBron. It's like the Brandon Ayuk sweepstakes. I don't know if it's a sweepstakes. It's more of a scratch off. Not that, though. That's not the NFL story that I'm referencing. Interestingly enough, a story with the Jets. Hassan Reddick has now requested a trade, which is absolutely hilarious for reasons that we'll probably get into between now and 6 o'clock. I'd love to take your calls. After our first segment, we'll take a break, kind of allow me to build the foundation of the show, and then we'll get into it after our first break around, 4:15, 4:20. 608-321-1670. You can call that number and text that number. You can tweet me at Wisco Grant. Show's got a Facebook page as well. Tonight, kind of a fun thing, little side note before we get into the Packers preseason game. We're video streaming the show now. I got it going on Facebook. I got it going on YouTube. If you just look up Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills, You can find the Facebook page. You can find the YouTube page. Really easy. It was my hope to have it on Twitter tonight. You have to get verified to live stream on Twitter. And yesterday I'm like, oh, well, I'll just buy the blue check mark and then I'll be good to go tomorrow. They're reviewing my account. I thought they'd be able to get it done in less than, I thought 24 hours was a reasonable window, but I guess in a couple days, the Elon's people need to pour over my account and make sure I don't even know. You pay $8, you get a blue check mark now. Now the yellow check mark, I understand why you'd review for that. I'm just trying to stream my show for God's sake. So hopefully tomorrow, who knows the process that they have it at X for deciding who gets a blue check mark. I thought it was just anyone with $8, but I guess there's a lot more to it than that. So we're live streaming the show. If you want to watch it, you can. Nothing's going to change. The content's going to be the same. Try lots of different things on the video stream with different pictures and graphics and see what works and see what's fun. It should be a fun little adventure, but if you're just listening every day, nothing's going to change. Just know that you have the option to watch it if you want to. You don't have to, but you certainly can. Saturday was awesome. I'd say Saturday was, not to be dramatic, Saturday was maybe a Mount Rushmore day of my summer. Maybe the George Washington of the Mount Rushmore. Maybe Mount Rushmore's not strong enough. I think one of the pole positions of Mount Rushmore. Beautiful day. Plenty of time in the morning and the early afternoon to get out. You need to go get groceries. You need to do something in the yard, whatever. Take care of your business. Go run your errands in the morning. And then starting around 2:00, settle in. We had the gold medal game for the U.S. men Olympic team against France, which juiced up the atmosphere even more because the Olympics are in France. So that was awesome. It was a great game. Steph Curry was excellent. Then that game flowed right into the Packers and the Browns, the preseason game. And then that game, I think it was a little bit of a delay, but that game got us to within like 60 or 90 minutes of Brewers Reds on Saturday night. So it was a pretty awesome Saturday. I think Mount Rushmore sports day of the summer. I know it's summer, so it's not exactly a stiff competition, but an awesome sports day on Saturday. I want to start with my Packers takeaways. Definitely want to talk about the Brewers and maybe the Olympics as the show goes along too. Let's start with where we ended on Friday when I did the show from Bill's house. I remember this very well. I'm really excited about rookie safety Evan Williams. And today on other shows, I've seen people talking about him. I've read more blogs. It feels like Evan Williams has picked up a little bit of steam this week. And by the way, I don't point that out as if to say we were first. We mentioned him. We talked about him a little bit last week. I think he might be the most underrated or under-discussed player in camp. And when I say underrated, that I'm not saying he's the best player on the team. I'm just saying we probably have not talked about him as much as we should. We probably haven't paid him as much mind and attention as we should because Xavier McKinney got around $70 million as a free agent this offseason. And Javon Bullard was taken in the second round, where I believe Evan Williams was taken in the fourth. Marshawn Lloyd in the third. Maybe he was the fifth. I'm pretty sure it was the fourth. Regardless, he was taking rounds after Bullard. And he wasn't given $70 million in free agency like Xavier McKinney was, right? I think he might be the most underrated, under-discussed player in camp. And I remember last week sharing this quote with you. This is from Zach Jacobson on Twitter, but he spoke to the media, and I'm sure it was recorded and posted and written about by many. It's just Zach's tweet that I'm reading you. Evan Williams today on Xavier McKinney, quote, "Honestly, I've just tried to listen twice as much as I speak and see exactly what makes him tick. Just being able to see his habits and to see what it takes to be a great safety in this league has been a huge help for me." It's pretty cool. Seems very polished, very postured, very matured, very serious, which isn't surprising coming from Oregon. It's not to say there aren't immature players from Oregon or mature players from elsewhere. Obviously, it's just, that's a big boy program. Now, that's a program that's ready to contend for national titles. They've been in the playoff. That's what I would expect, right? Especially from a more cerebral position like safety. On Saturday, he led the team in tackles. He had 6 solo tackles. He had a forced fumble. At some point this week, maybe we'll get Bukowski on. Maybe we'll get Andy Herman. I want to talk to a Packers person. I almost said it doesn't really matter who. I suppose it doesn't matter who. I want to talk to a Packers person who's there seeing it. Maybe, you know what? Screw it. Forget I brought up Bukowski. Forget I brought up Herman. Forget it. Start over. At some point this week, we'll talk with Mike Clemens. And I'll ask Mike Clemens. I see a lot of people online saying, well, he's not the flashiest player. He's not the most dynamic player. He's not but he's just going to be a solid ball player. He's just going to be solid. And where does that come from? Does that come from his athletic profile? Does that come from draft priors? Where does that? Because when I read that, I read high floor, low ceiling player, which might be fine because maybe Bullard provides the ceiling or maybe Xavier McKinney provides the ceiling. I don't know. It's just very interesting. I guess I'm not offering a take on it. I'm just pointing it out that I would like to learn more at some point this week when people are always saying, not going to be flashy. It's not going to be the craziest player, just going to be real solid for him. Okay. Interesting. I've seen a lot of people say that, which is why I want to dig a little bit deeper into that at some point. But I think Evan Williams, you saw it. We haven't talked about him a lot because Bullard and McKinney have grabbed more headlines, but I think they have a really solid group of safeties. And again, I like the combo. McKinney, the veteran, who can bring along the young guys, the Packers and Brian Gutekunst investing a couple higher draft picks in those young guys. And I think that combination of McKinney and those rookies coming in at the same time could be really beneficial for the back end of the Packers defense, which is a big weakness for them last year, especially when they lost to the Niners in the playoffs. Going in no particular order here, next thing on my list, I think we need to raise the bar for Lucas Van Ness a little bit. The Packers drafted him 13th, I believe. It was an odd number, and it was higher than 15. He was top 15, and I don't think he was high as 11. It must have been 13. My brain, I might as well just remember the actual number, but my brain doesn't. I think I'm 99% sure it was 13. It was an odd number, but higher than 15, lower than 11, whatever. They drafted him 13th overall, not because he was a hyper-productive player in college or because he played a ton. He didn't. He was at Iowa, and he was an underclassman, so he didn't play as much, and he came out early. They drafted him that high because of his traits and because of his high ceiling. Not that different from Rashawn Gary, not necessarily a pick based on college production, but on professional projection, right? That it almost sounded too polished the way that I said it. I didn't write that down. That's just how it came out. I guess I'm on it today. What can I say? You didn't draft guys. You don't draft guys. You shouldn't draft guys in the top 15 because of college production. You should draft them because of what you think they're going to do in the pros, right? And now he's going into year 2. Everything I read and hear from smarter Packer people, smarter football people tell me that Hafley's scheme should be a great fit. There's less two-gap stuff. He's going to be responsible for fewer moving parts and details, going to be able to put his hand in the dirt. He's going to be able to play like a little bit more fluid, move around, be in different spots, right? Like he did at Iowa. And Lucas Van Ness has talked about that so far through camp. I'm not making that up out of nowhere. That's been reported, and he's talked about that. I think at worst, Lucas Van Ness should be a very, very good rotation pass rusher this year, alongside Rashawn Gary, alongside Preston Smith, and J.J. Enagbare, who didn't blow out his knee. And for whatever reason, Matt LaFleur was cagey about that, as if we were going to show up to week 1 and how's Enagbare on the field? Did he not blow his ACL? Whatever. That's just been bizarre. I keep bringing it up because it still doesn't make sense to me, but whatever. Worst case scenario, Lucas Van Ness is a very solid part of a pass rush rotation. Best case scenario, and I think this is fair and realistic, and I think fans on some level should expect this. That's why I'm bringing this up. I think best case scenario, he should take a leap and be a difference maker this year on a level higher than Preston Smith, and certainly on a level, all respect to Enagbare and to the other guys. But I think Lucas Van Ness should be the second best edge rusher on this team beside Rashawn Gary. That's what I think. At worst, he should be a very good part of the rotation. And at best, I think this is realistic. He's a top 15 pick going into year 2. I think at best, he should separate himself and be on the level higher than Preston Smith and Kingsley Enagbare. I'm not going to expect him to be Rashawn Gary, but I think best case scenario, he separates himself a little bit and is an elite pass rusher along that line and second fiddle only to Rashawn Gary and head and shoulders producing and growing and headed in a direction higher than Enagbare and higher than Preston Smith. Does that make sense? That's not a slight on Enagbare and Preston Smith, but Enagbare was a low pick. Preston Smith is an aging veteran, and he's very solid. And knock on wood, he's nothing if not productive and reliable. But Lucas Van Ness, again, was a top 15 pick. Now going into year 2 with more opportunity in a scheme that fits him more, I think it's fair to expect more from him. And I think Cone Roller was the first one to bring that up. And I think it's an excellent point, and it's something that we should continue to follow throughout camp. Lastly, last thing that I wrote down during Saturday's game. And unlike Evan Williams and unlike Lucas Van Ness, this might just be a preseason thing, okay? Before Vagabond John shows up on the phone and climbs up my rear end to say, oh, Packers fans, we get so high about the guy on the bottom of the roster. I'm aware that the player that I'm about to bring up and talk about, if he makes the roster, will be probably the last guy at his position. And chances are we get through most of the season without ever really thinking about this guy again. Chances are. I'm aware. I'm going to bring it up anyway because it's preseason and training camp and we have a show to do today. Grant Dubose looks really good. And I know we always do this in the, oh, look at Malik Heath. Okay, I know we always do it. But when you consider the history of Grant Dubose as a Packer so far. Never really get a shot last summer because of a back injury. So he missed most of camp, and by the time the season had started, he was so far behind that he was basically just on the practice squad. And Matt LaFleur talked, if not today, I think Saturday. I played the audio at some point during Bill's show today. I don't remember which press conference it was from, but I played a clip of Matt LaFleur, and maybe I'll pull it up for the next segment, talking about, Grant was disappointed last year that he wasn't on the 53. I think Dubose probably felt as though at some point he deserved a shot. The Packers decided we're basically just going to redshirt you because you're too far behind the 8 ball after missing time with an injury. But he ends up on the practice squad, and now he's back. This is basically, he's a redshirt sophomore now, essentially, right? And as a prospect, Grant Dubose is big, strong, long arms, big hands, physical, and a commodity that could block. Absolutely. I went back and read Dane Brugler and others. They're like, this guy, not afraid to mix it up as a blocker, big, physical, strong. Not the most polished, right? Not a perfect player. That's why he was a lower round pick. But the traits, the physical traits, scream Green Bay Packers wide receiver. He had a relative athletic score of 8.79. Okay. That's a quintessential Packers wide receiver pick. Much more so than Bo Melton, who's shorter. Much more so than Samori Toure, who's thinner. And I'm not saying Melton shouldn't make the roster. I'm not saying that. I am probably saying that Toure shouldn't make the roster. And I love Samori Toure. I've always loved it. I love Toure time. I always wanted it to be Toure time. It's not going to be Toure time. I think that mission we've tried it a couple of years now. Let's try someone else, right? Now, Bo Melton was successful last year. He didn't look awesome in camp. Bo Melton in camp or in preseason, I know it only matters so much, but Bo Melton never looked like Grant Dubose has looked, right? I'm saying if the Packers end up keeping 6 wide receivers, I would think long and hard about not making Grant Dubose the 6th one, whether it's for Malik Heath or Bo Melton. I know Bo Melton was really good down the stretch last year. I'm just trying to think long-term, right? Guys with a higher ceiling, guys who have a chance to turn into something more than just a nifty 6th wide receiver on the roster, because I think that's probably all they're going to be able to keep, right? Again, full disclosure, it might not matter. I know I'm making a point about the 6th wide receiver on the roster, maybe the 7th at some point. I know. But that's what training camp is for. That's what preseason is for. And if we're deciding on wide receiver 6, who's not going to play much anyways, I would rather go Grant Dubose over Toure. I've seen that movie before. I don't need to watch it again. Or Malik Heath, who is a nasty blocker, but does he have the upside as a receiver that Dubose has? No, and Dubose can block too. So I'm just kicking around possibilities and options at that final wide receiver spot, and I think this could be an interesting battle. Maybe we'll hear Matt LaFleur's comments about that at some point. All right, I've rambled long enough. I want to take a break and get to your calls. 608-321-1670 if you want to join the Wisco Sports Show. Text, call. The video stream is up and rolling. I'm going to go check and make sure it sounds and looks okay and I didn't break anything. We'll be back in 3 minutes. It's the Wisco Sports Show.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
That's one thing that they understand, what's happening, and they understand every day you have to be at your best. Every day you have to bring it. And you're really seeing all those guys step up. And it's been pretty cool to watch just the competitiveness of all those guys.
That's Adam Stenavich, Packers offensive coordinator, who spoke today, and so did Luke Butkus and Ben Sermons and Jason Vrabel and Tom Clemens. Everybody spoke today, except for Jeff Hafley. And I don't know exactly the theories or the idea. I don't know why they do what they do. But Adam Stenavich was great. I want to play you some comments from him to start the second hour of the show when we get to 5 o'clock, because I think we can learn a thing or two about what he said about Sean Ryan along the offensive line and what they're looking for at that last tackle position, right? The first guy off the bench in the event that Zach Tom goes down, or in the event that Rasheed Walker goes down, like who's the next one up. We can learn a little bit about what Adam Stenavich had to say. We can learn from it. He also talked about Jordan Love's deep passing game, which looks improved, at least through camp and preseason so far in 2024. Who knows if it will stay? Disclaimer on everything that's said, by the way. Now that we have a preseason game under our belt, I know it's just preseason. I know. And I know it's just training camp. And I know some of these players, Grant Dubose, who we were just discussing before that last break, I know that some of these players might not be factors when you get into the regular season. I know. But we have a show tonight to do tonight at 4 o'clock tonight. So am I just supposed to ignore it? No, we're going to talk about it. We're going to discuss it. That's what this time of year is for. I'd love to take your calls and text 608-321-1670. Let's go to the phones. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Oh, wow. First callers? It's me, Grant.
Thomas? Lacrosse? What's going on?
You got it. Hey, Grant, I'm back from the Brewer game.
Were you were there yesterday?
Sunday.
Yep.
Saturday. Yeah, Saturday.
Okay, well, that makes more sense. Saturday. Well, you saw the world's quickest game. I would be a little peeved. I don't know that you got a lot of bang for your buck with your ticket. I hope you got there early and watched batting practice or something.
Grant, as soon as I hang out with you here, can I send you over a photo? A legendary photo?
What? Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I don't know if you have the TTL, the talk and text line, fired up, but I'll send you over a banger photo.
I always have it fired up.
It's
go ahead. Yeah.
Cool photo. And you'll recognize someone for sure. UWL grad. Better yet at that in there. So that's all I'll say about that. But what a good game. It was a pretty good game. And Grant, I'm coming to you, by the way, live from my new apartment.
Oh, help. Well, that's how I would want to break in my new apartment, too, is calling a sports radio show.
Right.
Wait, so if you were at the Brewer game on Saturday, did you not watch? I mean, I'm not going to judge you if you didn't. It's a preseason game, but you probably didn't see any of the Packer game on Saturday if you were going to the Brewer game. And you were going with Rob Dog, right?
No. Hey, Grant, no, I did. We were on the train.
Oh, okay.
So I did watch a little bit, and we were a little delayed, so we didn't get until after 4, so I did catch a little bit.
Oh, yeah. Well, you saw the early stuff. You saw the stuff that mattered. What'd you see early on in the first quarter? What jumped out to you?
Yes. Grant, I'm going to be Midwest nice. After you were going to say something about Rob Dog?
No, you told me last week that you were going with Rob Dog from Stoddard.
Oh, yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. I thought you were going to say something about him. Yeah.
No.
What stood out to me from the Brewer game or the Packer game, or you want to get both quick?
I would like you to give me a takeaway from whatever game means more to you at this point in the call. I just need some, either one. I don't particularly care at this point.
I'll get both. Really
They're both
quick.
good.
I know you got callers on the line, so let's get both done real fast.
Sure.
So we'll start Brewers. Reese Hoskins can absolutely hit dingers. And I loved it. I wish it was hit towards our section. We're in right field, but oh well.
Rhys Hoskins has a knack for hitting them in big spots, too. And in
Right.
theory, we'll talk about this later on in the show. In theory, if Yelich and Contreras and Adames and the meat of their order, if they're producing, obviously not every night, but if they're producing most of the time, then Hoskins doesn't have to hit homers all the time. But if he can hit them in big moments, right, then that's not kind of why. That's why they brought him in. I think that was the idea on signing him.
Absolutely. And yeah, it's a biased field. I think they took him out like after like 7 2/3. He pitched like 110 good pitches too.
Yeah, he stayed into the 8th, which is weird because a week ago they pulled him at like 65 pitches, and I'm not sure if that was a competitive thing or if it couldn't have been injury related unless his body completely transformed between starts.
Right. And then Packers. Can I just say this? I called in. Grant, do you, by the way, know the 97.3 9 to Nooners? Billy Schmidt, Armin Sarian, John Kuhn.
Yes, I am familiar with that competing radio station. Yes, I am.
We're not going to mention it anymore because obviously Grant, that same radio show right here during the the afternoon draft. So
what about the show?
I called into their show and gave them a very hot take of a record prediction, and they were stunned. It was early on, and they're on YouTube too. You could go back and check it out. It was like 20 minutes in or so.
I'll do that over the break.
Yeah, I might as well. They're on YouTube 97.3, The Game Milwaukee, I think, is their YouTube channel. But it was from today. So are you ready to hear my record prediction?
I have been, yes. Yep.
I mean, you're just probably head over heels just to hear Edaville Thomas give a prediction. All right, here you go, Grant. You ready?
Yes.
11-7. There you go. Put it down.
That was what floored them?
What do you mean?
Well, and Thomas, I appreciate it. I just 11-7 is like 15-2. Holy balls. No. Only 2 losses? I mean, 11-7, that's dude, if they go 11-7, I think most Packers fans would probably be like, yeah, that's all right. That's probably around where they should be. I think it's a little rich because I don't know that the Packers are going to be able to play with the pace for the entire season that they did down the stretch last year. Might be able to, and if they can play like that for the entire season, they're going to win a lot of games. But I'm not saying they'll come back down to earth. But I think over the span of an entire season, you mix in some duds, you mix in a game where you get unlucky. 11-7 is. I would be thrilled with 11-7, especially because I think the Bears are going to be so much better, and the Lions are going to be awesome. And don't look now, but J.J. McCarthy looked pretty good. And I don't think J.J. McCarthy is going to start more than some amount of games. Sam Darnold's probably going to be their week 1 starter. At least that's what they've announced. I don't know necessarily why they had to announce that this early. Unless I misread the announcement. It was like he's starting the preseason game or he's our starter for now. But J.J. McCarthy looked pretty good in action. A lot of the rookie quarterbacks did. Most rookie quarterbacks looked excellent, except for Drake May, which is kind of funny considering we were talking about Drake May on Friday and what Boston sports fans and what Patriots media is going through. It's like, sit him all year. We'll be patient. And then he only plays 7 snaps in the preseason. I was like, what are we doing? He's got to learn sometime. He's got to play sometime. It's like, hey, you guys, you were ready for this. You were prepared for the idea that he was going to sit all year. That means that he, in the preseason opening, might only play a tiny little bit. It's funny to watch other fan bases go through that. Another note that I had from Saturday, Vagabond John might have some more ammo for his growing anti-Marshawn Lloyd narrative. He now has a hamstring injury. And this is after he had a hip injury earlier in camp. I'm also a little worried about his ability to catch the football and to hold on to the football, right? Like, my concern about Marshawn Lloyd when I say, oh, he hurt his hamstring, it's his second injury in camp. My concern isn't over his health. My concern is his availability. You're like, Grant, those are the same things. Well, not technically, okay? I'm not necessarily concerned that Marshawn Lloyd is injury prone. He's adjusting to becoming a professional. Sometimes it happens. My concern is not his body physically. My concern is that he's not available and he's not practicing. He's not getting reps. He's not learning. He's not growing. Missing 2 or 3 weeks of training camp is less than ideal. Missing almost all of it is kind of a catastrophe, especially in his first training camp as a professional, especially as a rookie, right? These reps are so crucial. This early development is so crucial for rookies coming into the NFL. It just kills them to not be out there. And you know who, when we talk about rookie reps and early injuries in rookie camp, you know who I always think of? I think of Vince Beagle. And I don't know that Vince Beagle was destined to be some generational outside linebacker, but I remember when Vince Beagle was drafted, I liked how Ted Thompson spun the draft. I would have been thrilled with TJ Watt. I was also okay with the idea. It's like, okay, so you got a linebacker that we're not really convinced is that much better or worse than TJ Watt. Vince Beagle and TJ Watt were both really good at Wisconsin in their own right. And they got him so much later, so there's value. And you added to the corner position Kevin King, who was one of the best prospects, if not the best corner prospect. He could tackle. I remember that. Like going back, and you go back and look at the draft, like, okay, that's fine. Looking back, it's a catastrophe because you could have had TJ Watt on your team and you don't. But at the time, I'm like, I get it. I get why Ted Thompson spun it this way and did it this way rather than just taking TJ Watt, which was, I think, what most people thought he should have done. Whatever. I think of Vince Beagle because he broke his foot and he missed almost all of his rookie camp. And he's so far behind the 8 ball. And he's not ready. And then when he tries to come back, he's behind and he's lost. And then he gets hurt again. And injuries. And I'm not saying his broken foot in rookie camp doomed his entire NFL career. But it's so difficult for rookies joining and becoming NFL players already when they're getting all the reps and when they're on the field and they're learning and they're participating in preseason games and enjoying practices. And if you're not doing any of that, it's just going to be really hard for Marshawn Lloyd when he gets healthy to A, step in and produce and to be a good player, but also B, to stay healthy. How often do you see when guys join the team late or they miss camp because of a contract issue or they miss camp because of an injury, that then turns into another injury or turns into something else? So I am worried about the season that Marshawn Lloyd is beginning to have. I'm not worried about his body per se. I'm worried that he's missing all of these reps and he's missing opportunities to get better. And by the way, Edgerrin Cooper, same. Teron Hopper, same. Jordan Morgan, to a lesser degree, same. I'm worried about all these guys. It's an opportunity cost. It's not just, well, the injuries aren't serious. They'll be back before week 1. Yeah, but there's a lot of time between now and week 1. There's a lot of reps. There's a lot of opportunity for growth and opportunity for maturity for these rookies. And they're just missing out on that, which is really frustrating. 608-321-1670. If you'd like to call or text, get to some of your texts regarding your Packers takeaways coming back. We can also get into the Brewers for a couple minutes. Nice to hear that Thomas went to the Brewer game. That was a story that was not exactly efficient, but that's fine because he was the only caller on hold. So all is well that ends well. It's the Wisco Sports Show. We're back in just a couple minutes. Stay tuned.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Big River Rally, August 16th and 17th in La Crosse, Wisconsin at the Fest Grounds. Friday night, Buck Jerry.
Y'all crazy, baby.
And Saturday night, Jackal.
I'm a lumberjacker, baby.
The Big River Rally.
And I'm gonna cut you down the side.
Get your tickets and find out more at BigRiverRally.com.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 5 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 4 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
In today's day and age in the game, the atmospheres at the ballparks are very important. We've got incredible fans, and I think we're improving our atmosphere at the game where those are the types of things that affect opponents. And they do. I've been on the other side of it. You go to Dodger Stadium, and it's an incredible environment, and tough for opponents to hear, to think, to react to. So those are a little bit advantages that we have. So hopefully we'll have a lot of that.
It's Pat Murphy talking about Saturday night's game. The crowd is one advantage they have. Manipulating the roof is another. Right amount of cheating, little amount of cheating. Never hurt anybody. Ballpark manipulation. Know your park. It's Pat Murphy. They took 2 or 3 from the Reds. I want to talk about that in a minute or two. I want to get to your texts first. The phone lines are empty, so a good opportunity to go over to text, make sure I'm not missing out on anybody or anything. Jared in Manitowoc said 11-7. I think they were floored because the NFL, according to that guy, went to an 18-game schedule. Yeah, that went over my head during Thomas's call. When he said 11-7, I didn't even put 2 and 2 together that's 18 games. So for whatever reason in my head, 11-7, 11-6. My first thought was that's not. He made it sound like it was going to be the world's most insane prediction, which for this Packers team, like if you want to call in and say, I think Jordan Love's going to win the MVP, Matt LaFleur coach of the year, and the Packers are going to win the Super Bowl. All right. Like I wouldn't bet on it. I wouldn't say it's likely. Well, I'd bet on it if you gave me good odds, right? Like, but it's not the most insane thing in the world. I'm trying to think of a prediction that's that crazy and that insane regarding the 2024 Packers that would floor me. I don't know what would floor me. An 11-6 season with all due, Thomas, would That would not floor me. That would seem maybe a little bit better than average. They win a game here or there that maybe they shouldn't have won, and then they beat all the teams they're supposed to beat. That's thank you for the call, though. Mike in Portage says, Grant, welcome to the streaming world. Whenever you stare into the camera, it's like staring deep into my soul. On the Packer wide receiver issue, I could have skipped that first part. Goody loves having a lot of draft picks. So I think one of the lower level wide receivers like Melton, Dubose, or Toure will be traded for a late pick before the season starts. XO. I don't know. I'll get excited about Dubose, and I'll be a fan and look at things over. I'll put my Packers stock certificate in the drawer for this, and I'll let my imagination run wild a little bit during preseason. I don't know that I'm going to convince myself that Toure is worth a pick or that Bo Melton's worth a pick. Dubose, maybe, but still probably not. I'd rather just have him as the 6th wide receiver because I think he can do a lot of the same things that Heath did last year and potentially grow and turn into something greater as a wide receiver, as an actual pass catcher and not just basically a rotational blocker. Paul in Menasha says maybe no more caffeine products for you the rest of the show. What? That's your complaint? Is I have too much energy? Come on. What do you mean? I'm excited, Paul. I'm sorry. Coyote Mike, one more text and then I want to talk Brewers. Says, my trip was too short. Very nice in La Crosse. Drank beers with my best friends. Visited Goose Island. Great place. I listened to Wayne and Larry call the game as I sped down to Omaha. Oh, long road trip while listening to a sporting event. 10 out of 10 experience. I got to my room in time to watch Packers fourth quarter. Omaha is a Packers TV affiliate. You're telling me that it was easier to watch the Packers in Omaha than it was in some places in Wisconsin, or so I'm told by listeners and consumers of sports talk today. Says that game was one tough win. Speaking of the Brewers, should have won yesterday. Managerial decisions, pinch running for Sanchez, blah, blah, blah. Great weekend in Wisconsin. Thank you, Coyote Mike. Nice to have you back in Wisconsin, even if it was just for a couple of days. I appreciate you. Thanks for being a part of the show. Always. Let's talk about the Brewers a little bit. I said a couple weeks ago that sporting events can be funny, that games can be funny. Games can get us angry. They can make us very happy. Games can make us cry, for better or worse. Sometimes sporting events can just be really funny. It's like the example I used when I first brought this up. I think we talked about this after the Brewers Cubs series. I'm like, look, that was bad baseball by both sides. Neither team really deserved to win. It was really funny, though. It was hilarious. And I think I used the example of The Sopranos. The first time I watched The Sopranos, it was good. It was very good. It was very good, but it didn't floor me like I thought maybe it would be. It's like, man, this is television history. This is basically the beginning of prestige television. And now that I've rewatched parts of it, I'm like, man, I didn't appreciate how funny this show is. Like, this show is as a comedy is awesome. Sometimes you need to open your mind and your brain to comedy. Sometimes you miss it if you're not looking for it, right? That game on Saturday, the game took 2 hours and 3 minutes. It's the game that Thomas went to. Heard all about that. I had friends from the Twin Cities that came down for that game. The drive from St. Paul to Milwaukee is like 4 and change, closer to 5. You could have played 2.5 of those Brewer games in the time that it took my buddy and his friends to drive down from the cities to get to American Family Field, which is, again, hilarious. The Reds were limited to 3 hits by Tobias Myers, and then they were wiped by Yoel Payamps, who is maybe returned to form, ? And Devin Williams. The Reds have not recorded a hit against Devin Williams in 39 plate appearances, going all the way back to August 7th, 2022, which, by the way, to go even farther into that conversation, I believe that that's 1 week after the Hader trade. So the Hader trade was obviously on Devin Williams' mind. So can we really even count that? No, I don't think so. So I don't even know how long it's been. I reject that reporting. Well, the last hit they got off Devin Williams was August 7th, 2022. Okay, sure. But I mean, that's like playing against an injured pitcher. The Hader trade was obviously on his mind. So that doesn't even really count. The actual important Brewers things to take away from this weekend, other than the hilarity of Saturday night's win, this is the Rhys Hoskins that the Brewers paid for. He's never in his entire career, he's never been a perfect player. He hits around 240. His career batting average around there, which is never going to blow your socks off. Other than his rookie year and 2020, which the farther we get away from 2020 and the more we hear people talk about 2020, I just don't know that you could take anything away from that season. It was basically no spring training. It was 60 games. You can't do anything with that. Throw it out. Other than his rookie year in the pandemic shortened season, he's been anywhere between 27 and 34 home runs, 70 and 90 RBIs, and a clutch guy who hits home runs in big spots. That's the perfect player to add to a lineup with Yelich, Contreras, and Adames. Now, Yelich is hurt right now, so I get it. Rhys Hoskins is the perfect supplement, which is, by the way, why he was so great on the Phillies, is because they had Schwarber and Castellanos and Harper, like Trey Turner. They have their main sticks. Rhys Hoskins is a supplement. Now, the Brewers are going to count on Hoskins a little bit more than a team like the Dodgers and the Phillies were, but still, the Brewers aren't paying him to be their second or probably even third best hitter. They're paying him to be 4 or 5 and to basically do what he's been doing. He's on a 14-game hit streak, and it's funny because some of those hits are infield hits, and Rhys Hoskins is one of the slowest people I've ever watched try to run to first base. He's slashing 327, 362, 546, a batting average of 327, which is basically 100 points higher than his, again, year-over-year average, excluding his rookie year in the pandemic-shortened season. Slugging of 546, on base at 362. So he's still not giving you much in terms of on base, but the average is there and the power's been there. 5 home runs, 11 RBIs, and he's raised his average basically 25 points over the span of this 14-game hitting streak. So that's definitely something to pay attention to and to value moving forward throughout this homestand. Joey Ortiz showing some life. I don't really have any flowery stat-based analysis of this, other than to say Joey Ortiz had a really nice game in Atlanta, and he hit a home run yesterday for the first time in a long time. My analysis of Joey Ortiz, again, is not flowery. It's very simple. It's this. The Brewers need Joey Ortiz to be good and not another Luis Urias. Because if Joey Ortiz turns into Luis Urias after a hot start to the season, that just kind of messes a lot of things up. Because if Joey Ortiz is good, okay. Well, he's the cornerstone of the Corbin Burnes trade. Whatever you get from DL Hall, you have Joey Ortiz, who's a foundational everyday player at third base or at shortstop. And they might need him to play shortstop, given that Willy Adames is probably going to depart this offseason, right? So Joey Ortiz being good is kind of important because it gives you the mobility and the flexibility to let Willie walk and not be totally and completely boned. And it gives you something to hang your hat on after dealing Corbin Burnes. If Joey Ortiz stinks, the Corbin Burnes trade is a disaster. And you have, other than Bryce Terang, who's like a bad month away from being one of the worst qualified hitters in baseball, because that's what he was last year. It's what he was for a month outside of, the rest of the year's been great. My point is, if Joey Ortiz isn't any good, your infield is in trouble next year. And we're looking at the Corbin Burnes trade and Matt Arnold, like, what was that? What did you get? What did you net from that? Because trading Corbin Burnes before the end of his contract, that's supposed to be something that completely and totally reloads your farm system with at least a player or two that you can count on. And if Ortiz stinks, the count's at 0, right? Now, we could talk about DL Hall coming up next. Let's take a call. 608-321-1670, Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Hey, Grant.
Hey, Cone. What's going on?
Oh, I got on right away. Wow. Didn't hear the beat. But do we think this Corbin Burnes trade is really going to be a disaster? I mean, he had 1 year left no matter what. I don't think we need to revisit this trade in 3-4 years.
No, I mean, probably not 3 or 4 years. You're right. Like, he only had a year left. The idea is, though, you didn't need to trade Corbin Burnes. You could have. You didn't need to. And if Ortiz turns out to be Luis Urias and DL Hall is what he's been so far, like that, all I'm saying is that's a really underwhelming return. Like, that's a bummer. That's a huge bummer if these pieces don't work out.
Yeah, I agree. Have we seen enough from Ortiz to give him the shortstop of the future? Because I don't see the Brewers bringing back Willy Adames in really any scenario.
No, I don't think they will. I don't think they can. I don't think they should. Have we seen enough? I mean, what we saw the first couple of months of the season would be, like, if we could get that would be great. My point is, if that was a mirage and he is a below average player, like, the Brewers will still probably move on from Willy Adames, but they don't have a player where we can all go, oh, you just slide him over and it's great, right? They'll have to figure something out or acquire someone, or I don't know what they'll do.
Yeah, we'll see. Maybe Terang slots over to shortstop. You bring Keston here back to play second.
That's one of many external options I'm sure they could explore if Willy Adames departs, which I think he will. There's no bad ideas, Cone. There's no bad ideas. That's a fine idea.
Well, the only bad ideas are ones coming from Thomas and Lacrosse's mouth. But love the video stream. I was tuned in earlier.
That's fun.
Great touch. And Lucas Van Ness, actually a pretty good preseason game.
Yeah, you were kind of first to this. He really popped, and he's looking like maybe he's ready to take that leap that you said. And I love this because you keep the pressure down, right? You as a radio host, I feel like I need to hold athletes and teams accountable, and I can't hand out passes. You keep the pressure on me, so I keep the pressure on our sporting teams. And Lucas Van Ness is one of those guys. It's like, man, you're top 15 pick, year 2. You have everything in front of you, a defense that should fit your skill set better. He should be awesome this year, and I'm glad he looked really good in his first preseason game. That was great.
Yeah, and it might be confirmed that Lucas Van Ness does not miss the Friday show. He must have been listening.
Now, okay, so that's very true. You maybe motivated him? Question mark? Who's to say? Now, you also doubted him at the time of his drafting, though. You doubted him when he was drafted for off-the-field reasons.
I did doubt him, and he wasn't a starter. Like, we really going to take a non-starter in the top 15 of the draft? That was my biggest question.
I'll find this audio, but Matt LaFleur said either on Saturday or he said today that the idea of playing Lucas Van Ness a ton is that he didn't get to play a lot at Iowa, so they want to get him caught up. It's like, okay, Matt, like he's been in the NFL for a year. Like, we're trying to boost his career football game total by playing him in preseason to make up for Kirk Ferentz being weird. Like, I have to go find that audio because I thought it was funny.
That is a hell of a spin zone. I like it.
I know, right? Like, I'm glad I'm not the only one. Sometimes I wonder if I'm the only one that cares about press conferences because they're such a big part of sports radio, but I'm glad you got a kick out of that too. Yeah, it's funny. I got to find that.
Yeah, we're holding our NFL head coaches to a higher standard of press conferences than our potential president. So, just keep the pressure on Grant and, have a great rest of the show. Have a great week.
Thank you, Cone. You as well. We're off to a great start. It feels like football's back a little bit after Sunday. We're kind of into it. There's NFL storylines on sports television and sports radio today. And the Olympics are done. The Olympics are fun, by the way. Really good Olympics. And I'm not really someone who gets into the Olympics, but there's star power now. There's athletes that we have to pay attention to and to watch, and watching LeBron and Steph and Kevin Durant on the same team, like, that's pretty cool too. So to not miss out on that opportunity and to be able to watch them play as a unit and watch Steph. I mean, there's nothing more fun in sports than Steph Curry doing Steph Curry things like he did on Saturday. So we'll continue to talk about all of this next. We got to get one more break in here before 5 o'clock. Might have time to sneak a call in. Otherwise, I promise after 5 o'clock, hot and heavy on the phone calls as the show starts to heat up a little bit. 608-321-1670 Wisco Sports Show. We're back after this.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Just, he's a guy that didn't get a ton of reps in college, to be honest with you. I don't even know if he started at Iowa, but so I think just once again, every rep is so valuable for him. Just the more play time. That's why we played him a little bit longer, is just get him more game action, and he'll be a guy that I would anticipate playing in this next game as well.
That rules so hard. Football coaches, they're the most interesting individuals that we have on this planet. The way their brain works, the things they say, and the things that their brains will do to get them to the place they're trying to go. Lucas Van Ness was the 13th overall pick in the draft. Over a year ago now, closer to a year and a half ago now. He has a full NFL season under his belt. And Matt LaFleur is saying, well, he didn't really play that much at Iowa, so we're trying to get him more rep. Jesus. He didn't play that much at Iowa. He did not start, mostly because Kirk Ferentz and the way that program is run is a little odd. I don't know that this makes up for that. I don't know that extra preseason reps in year 2 in Cleveland in early August makes up for the fact that he didn't start at Iowa. But that's why I love football coaches, is because only a football coach's brain would connect those dots. And that's part of the reason why I love sports talk radio, is I get to hear stuff like that. Let's get a 2-minute update from Zach Heilper. No commercials. If you're on hold, stay there. Phone calls. Adam Stenovich quotes. Good details next. Wisco Sports Show Hour 2.
This is a Wisconsin Sports Zone update.
Well, the Milwaukee Brewers could not complete the sweep of the Cincinnati Reds as they would fall 4-3 yesterday at American Family Field. The Brewers did get their starting pitcher D.L. Hall back, though. After missing nearly 4 months due to a hurt knee, Hall had a career-high 9 strikeouts and 4 2/3 innings of work. Manager Pat Murphy said he liked what he saw.
Since he's been a starting pitcher, I think he's become more of a complete pitcher, and that's kind of cool. He's really become a pitcher. At least he showed today. That's some very capable hitters over there in that lineup.
The Brewers now sit 7.5 games above the Cardinals for first place in the NL Central. They welcome in the Dodgers for a 4-game series starting tonight at American Family Field. Saturday saw the Packers in preseason game number 1. They beat the Browns 23-10. It took 3 snaps for Jordan Love to connect with Ontavian Wicks for a 65-yard touchdown pass. Up next is the Broncos. Will the number ones play? Here's more from head coach Matt LaFleur.
Right now, I don't anticipate those guys playing versus Denver, the majority of the starters. There might be a select few, but I think what we're going to do, just because we have the competitive practice versus the Broncos, use that as their game reps and let the other guys play.
It'll be Packers-Broncos on Sunday.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
You may know Rural Mutual Insurance as the #1 farm insurer. But did you know they also offer competitive home, auto, business, and life insurance? They make it convenient to bundle your insurance while saving you time and money. Visit ruralmutual.com to learn more.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
Fall practice is over for the Wisconsin Badgers down at UW Platteville. Now they turn their attention to August 30th when they begin their season against Western Michigan. For the Wisconsin Sports Zone Network, I'm Ebo.
was good to get back out there. It's been getting a little chippy in practice. It was good to go against somebody new, and I loved how our guys competed in all three phases, and I thought everybody made contributions.
This is where Wisconsin gathers to talk sports. Packers, Brewers, Badgers, Bucks. The Wisco Sports Show is on the air. Now, here's your host, Grant Bills.
I'm still thinking about that Matt LaFleur quote. That might derail the rest of the show. Fair warning. I may not recover. Well, he didn't play that much at Iowa, so we're trying to get him some extra. We're trying to get him some extra reps in his second preseason, by the way. His first preseason, it would make sense. It's like, yeah, he didn't play a ton of college football. He just needs game action. Okay, sure. That tracks. A lot of teams do that, and it makes sense. I mean, not the Patriots. They're like, yeah, Drake May didn't play a lot in college, and by God, it's not going to start playing now. 7 snaps, best we can do. Take it or leave it. But a lot of teams, if a player doesn't play a ton in college and they need the experience, they need the reps, yeah, get him in the preseason. They need the work. Lucas Van Ness, he's going into his second year. We're acting like these games accrue and they stack up. Like he's going back to school. Oh, I just thought it was time. I'd go back to school, get my master's, my MBA. It's like, no, he should be the second best edge rusher on this team. And if you want to play him in the preseason, fine. Because we talked about this last week. I think to a certain degree, guys need the reps and they should be ready and they should hit the ground running week 1. But well, he didn't play that much at Iowa, so that's why we're giving him some extra work. Okay, Matt. God bless you, man. And God bless football coaches for being the way that you are. It's the Wisco Sports Show. My name is Grant Bills. If you want to text, call the show. Would love to have you. 608-321-1670. Tom just tweeted in. He said, just signed up to watch you on YouTube. Congrats. First of all, it's not. I've wanted to do this forever. By the way, if you're just joining the show, we're now streaming. We're streaming on YouTube, on Facebook, and I thought we were going to be good to go on Twitter today, but the team at Twitter headquarters, or X, is they're reviewing. They want to make sure I'm okay to stream. So hopefully tomorrow, I don't know, but it's at some point very soon. Hopefully tomorrow should be streaming on Twitter too. But you can subscribe to the YouTube page. I like using YouTube, not because it's probably not as convenient for most folks as Facebook or Twitter. You just pop open the social media app that you're already using and it's right there. YouTube's kind of nice because it's it's sturdier. You know what I mean? Like you open it up and it's meant for watching videos. You can open it on a TV or YouTube's just very universal. It's very sturdy. Whereas Twitter and Facebook, but you're on Twitter and Facebook. So I wanted to make sure Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, that's where we're going to be. Twitter, we're just waiting for the team of engineers, the brilliant engineers at Twitter. Sorry, again, X, to get it figured out and to get me on there. So thank you. Congrats. It's something I've dreamed of my whole life. I finally got over the last hurdle of streaming the show, which is me doing the work. That I just needed an empty Saturday with nothing going on. So that's what I knocked out this weekend. Back to the phones. Back to the show. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this? Yes. Excellent point. Let's go to line number 3. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this? Pete.
I very seldom disagree with Cone Roller, but I think you're both wrong about not talking about the stop talking about the trade the Brewers made to trade away their ace pitcher to Baltimore. I mean, I not only do I think you should talk about it, today, I think you should talk about it every day because they, every once in a while they should go for it. I mean, just the idea of getting a couple guys from the recycle bin, for somebody who's going to be a free agent. I mean, they can do that anytime.
I don't recycle.
The team's filled with people from the recycle bin. So I think they should have gone for it and kept him.
I think if they keep Corbin Burns, I think that's fine too. They kept Adames. Like they could have traded Adames, Pete, because he's on his last year of his deal. He's probably going to walk for nothing. So I think as very often the Brewers do, and you don't have to like it, Pete, but they've explained this before. Like they kind of sit the fence between going all in and rebuilding. Okay. And these two players are perfect. We'll keep Adames, but we're going to trade Burns. You know what I mean? And like Ortiz and DL Hall, those aren't scrap heap guys. Those are
always
prospects.
rebuilding. One of these years, I mean, one of these years their bites at the apple are going to come to an end, or so this would be the year to do it. I mean, I'm really excited about this week because I'm going to see them play the Dodgers and Cleveland, and I'm really excited about Sunday's game because they're honoring the Negro Leagues and they're giving away a Dave from Monona bobblehead to honor the Negro League. So I am really excited. And also on when they play the Guardians, they're playing for the Rust Belt Trophy.
Yes.
So I think it's really exciting. But then after that, you go back to the postseason, and they just they don't have enough pitching to get through it. So I think they should every once in a while, like Kansas City, they should go for it. They're going to get their $2.5 million no matter what. So they should go for it. I mean,
right.
Stop being little orphan Annie and singing about the sun coming out tomorrow.
No,
the coach said, the future is now.
Okay. There's a lot of meat on that bone that you just gave us, Pete, and I appreciate the call. It's nice to have you, and I'm fascinated and also very excited to hear that you normally agree with Cone Roller. I think Cone's normally on the money on most things. This is tough. I was talking to our friend Justin Garcia about this on Friday. This is such a media guy thing to do, by the way. The media begins with me. I was talking to our friend at blah, blah, blah station. I went to a concert with Justin Garcia, who's on the Bucks radio network. He comes on the show a lot. And I basically bullied Justin into going to the show with me because I wanted to go see Tedeschi Trucks down at the Fest grounds, but I didn't have anyone to go with. So I'm like, I'll get the tickets. You just go with me. And we did. It was nice. We walked down there. It was a good time. And we were talking Brewers on the way down there because he's a baseball fan. And I was telling him about Ben Kenny, funny enough, because Ben, when he lived here and worked on Bill's show, Bill's a Philly guy. So he's a Phillies fan. It's a large market. It's a very high spending, high payroll team. And Ben would always say things like when the Brewers were potentially going to trade Corbin Burns, Ben was like, they should extend him. They should pay him. They should foot $200 million. They should just pay. They don't want to win bad enough if they don't pay it. It's like, okay, Ben, so in your world, you're not wrong. And if the reality of small market finances didn't exist, you'd be right? Like in a perfect world, right? We'd all be, what's the Merle Haggard quote? We'd all be drinking that free bubble up, eating that rainbow stew. That's what we'd be doing, right? It would be great. But Pete, you strike me as a man that exists and that lives in the real world. The Brewers, they just can't. They can't. It's not a matter of, Mark Attanasio should just sell everything he owns other than the Brewers, including all of his homes and his yacht and all of it. He should dump all of his stock and put it into a Corbin Burns. That's dumb, though. That's not how life works. So this is the path. And Pete, I think I've said this to you. I've said this to other callers before who want the Brewers to go all in. That's a strategy. That's a way to go about it. They could do it that way where they build it all the way up and then tear it all the way back down. They could do it that way. I think if the Brewers do what they're doing now and they do it that way over a 20 to 30 year sample, I think they have about an equal chance of at some point making or winning a World Series. They've elected to do it this way. You don't have to like it, but they've been very clear about how they're going about their business. And I guess that's all I have to tell you, Pete. Sorry. You hate it. You don't really seem to like anything the Brewers do. And that's your opinion. I guess all I can say to you is that's your opinion, man. And I can't help you. I'm sorry. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Grant, it's Q.
Hey, Q. What's going on?
Congrats on the inaugural streaming show.
Thank you. It's a big one today, Q. It's massive.
It's huge. I'm excited. I didn't even know you had a YouTube channel, but I liked and subscribed.
I appreciate that. I didn't have a YouTube channel until yesterday. I made it yesterday.
But I'm actually going to the game tonight. Kershaw and Peralta, which sounds a lot better on paper than in actuality. But I am excited. I think Mookie Betts is back tonight, so hopefully the Brewers offense can keep pounding the you-know-what out of the ball, because I guess I don't have a great track record when I'm in the house, but I'll be behind home plate in a Team USA holiday jersey tonight, so you might be able to see me behind the home plate.
I'll watch. You might see at some point Tyler Black tonight. Tyler Black, according to Kurt Hogan, others, was out on the field warming up. So I don't know what kind of roster movements they're going to do. They optioned DL Hall earlier this afternoon to make room, to make room for Hudson, just probably to create space until time for Hall's next start or whatever. I saw Dom Catronio explaining it on Twitter. There's a reason they're doing it. It's not because Hall stinks, right? It's the timing, and it's okay, whatever. That's good enough for me. But Tyler Black, I think, might be around as a DH, and I guess Blake Perkins is dealing with like a strained calf or something. It's not a big deal, but they just have him up as insurance.
Well, hopefully I'll get to see him tonight. I guess I kind of sit on the fence with the Brewers. I agree that the return that we got for Burns does make me question Matt Arnold a little bit. And then I get really frustrated with the lack of direction. Like, if you're going to trade Burns, then why keep Willie around?
But this is, but again, like,
I get it.
But that's what they're doing. It's 6 of one, half dozen the other. Like, they're doing a little bit of both.
My second point is, no matter what happens this year, this is a successful season, because at the beginning of the year, if we would have said we're going to win the Central and make the playoffs, like, we all would have said that would be a successful season. Because I think most people thought we would take a step back this year. And if keeping Willie gets us into the playoffs this year, especially with Yelich on the shelf, like, I guess I'm here for it. But, and I guess the saving grace to not trading Willie is, hey, at least we don't have to complain about that lackluster trade package in next year. So
yeah, I like
walk for nothing.
I like no, and I'm with you there, Q, and I appreciate the call. I just like keeping good players on my team, right? Like, and I know Willie's not perfect, which is why I'm really not interested in giving him a massive deal, right? For a team like the Brewers, if you're going to hand out a high price long-term deal, the guy's got to be as perfect as they come. Like, the Brewers can't afford to sign a deal that's an overpay. I think there are teams, the Dodgers, the Phillies, the Yankees, the Mets, right? There are these teams that can pay a little extra to acquire a player, knowing that, yeah, they're probably not worth this much, and it's probably going to drive us nuts a little bit sometimes, but we want the player and we got the money, so we'll just sign the deal. The Brewers can't do that type of thing. You know what I mean? The Brewers, that's not a deal that the Brewers can sign. That's not a way that they can operate. So Adames right now at this number, I really like Adames. His defense has slipped a little bit over the last few weeks. I would like for him to tighten that up, right? He gave away 2 runs yesterday. It was a big part of the reason why they lost. The offense needed to do more, obviously. But Willie Adames has been a minus defender recently, so we got to get that turned around. And he's been hitting for power, absolutely. I'm not saying that Willie Adames isn't a good player. The Brewers will miss him. I just think if Joey Ortiz continues to progress and they're able to make some additions this offseason, I think they're better off, or they're just as good not paying that money to Willie Adames and continuing to build their roster out in other places and through other people. That's my point, right? I'm not sitting here saying that Willie isn't good. Willie's good. I just don't really want to pay the number that it's going to take to keep him. And I don't think the Brewers do either, because the Brewers know it's not good business for them. 608-321-1670. We'll take one more call, then we'll take our break. Let's go Sports Show. Who's this?
Hey, Grant, Clemente, Mike.
Clemente! Hey, what's going on?
Well, I was just thinking about Corbin Burns. I'm looking at his stats right now. Last year he was 10-8. His ERA climbed up to 3.39. You know, I wonder if maybe the Brewers were thinking he was kind of on the downward trend, and they thought maybe now was the best time to get rid of him. Of course, this year he's 12-4 and 2.71. So
again, he's a good ad. He was a perfect fit for the Orioles and what they're trying to do this year. They're coming of age, and they're a team that stripped it all the way down and is now building it back up. That's just not how the Brewers really do business.
Yeah, I think at the time, I think getting rid of him and getting some position players, I think it was a good idea. I think maybe Corbin Burns just was burned out here. He never got enough offensive support, and I think it was good.
I think he did in that playoff game against the Diamondbacks last year. I think he got a good amount of support. He had a lead a couple of times that he squandered. I know what you're saying. It seemed like he was fatigued here. It seemed like he was ready for, to quote Craig Counsell, a new challenge. I'm not going to say he didn't have opportunities to go win games in the postseason, because he did. Right? It's not like he pitched 8 shutout innings against the Diamondbacks last year and the offense let him down. That's not what happened.
And it's good to see you on the big screen. I'm watching on my 60-inch TV right now. And your subscriber count's going up too.
Through the moon, I bet. We were at 30 earlier today. I bet are we past 35? We got to be getting close. That's a huge landmark for us.
You're 42 right now.
Holy, I gotta go ask for a raise as soon as this show's done. Look at that. Look at that reach. Look at our digital footprint, Clemhead.
You're an executive producer and you run your own show. You should be getting up there. Yeah, you should be big time.
An EP, executive producer. You know what I think is funny is the Packers played their first preseason game of the year on Saturday night, and a lot of young guys looked good. Jordan Love threw a 65-yard touchdown pass in the first couple minutes of the game. Things are great with the Packers right now. And Mike, I write down in my notes my thoughts on, look at this young safety, look at this wide receiver. Thomas and lacrosse calls. That's about it. The second I make a joke about the Brewers, the phones light up. Like I don't know what it is with the Brewers in this show, but it's just what folks want.
Grant, you never truly take a day off. You're on
you're right.
24/7.
Yeah.
You deserve a little bump in pay. I'm serious.
You're darn it. You know what, Clement? I think you're right. I think I'm going to storm over to my boss's office at 6:00. I doubt he'll still be here because he's probably going to go home right before that. But I'll storm over there. I'll storm over there on the walk. I'm going to feel really emboldened on the walk over there at least.
Do it.
I will. Thanks, Clement. I appreciate it. Have a good night.
Yeah. Thanks. Bye.
Clemhead Mike up in Chippewa Falls. We got to get a break in. I know there's a couple people on hold. I would love to get back into the Packers. I have some comments from offensive coordinator Adam Stenovich that I'd love to play for you. Not because I want to fill time with a press conference, although sometimes I do that when I'm tired. But he made 3 comments, 2 about the offensive line, 1 about Jordan Love, and I think we can learn something. A little nugget in there. There's a little tidbit in each of those comments about how they're planning to align the offensive line, what they're seeing in Jordan Love year 2 versus year 1, all that sort of thing. So things to be learned from Adam Stenovich. We'll get to that coming up as well. If you're on hold, stay there. I promise. I'll get to you. 3 minutes. We're back. Wisco Sports Show.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
Bill Michaels here. Get your two-wheel engines revved up. Here it comes. The Big River Rally coming to La Crosse, August 16th and 17th, where the river meets the road. Join us for all the action. There's going to be a stunt show, a bike show, food trucks, vendors of all types, and great music. Buck Cherry rocking Friday night, and yes, we're going to ride. I'm going to be leading the 100-plus mile ride on Saturday the 17th, and then bringing you back with the headliner Jackal taking the stage later that night. For tickets and info, go to BigRiverRally.com. That's BigRiverRally.com, and I'll see you there.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Yeah, I think he's taken off from where he was, last season. I think his practice habits are exactly what you want. And you talk about focusing on the things that you can control. And certainly, I know last year he was disappointed that he wasn't on the 53. And, all you can do is control how you respond to that. And I think that he's done that. And he shows up every day, competes hard. He knows the DBs know that they're going to feel him whether it's a run play, pass play, whatever it may be, that they're going to get his best effort on every play.
As Matt LaFleur talking about Grant Dubose. I want to start to get back into the Packers. If you have a Brewers thought, come on, I'm a sucker. I'll take it. I'll talk Brewers. Josh in Menominee. Let's throw a Brewers thought in there. Texan says, hindsight being 2020 on the Burns trade. Better off without Burns this year because I don't think he fit the clubhouse. Crew is winning on vibes and energy and fire. Burns seems like an arrogant ass. Willie fits this team perfectly. We are totally overachieving this year. Team culture factors in heavy on that. Need the right players, not just the best players. Just a thought. Well, Josh, I think you're, forget right versus best. I think you're one of the best texters tonight. Thank you. I think that's an excellent point. I don't know the clubhouse or Corbin Burns well enough to comment on the whole arrogant ass part. I'll say that about Craig Counsell, not because I know better, but just because I don't like him. And I think that probably helped the vibes, or if nothing else, changed the vibes, which might have been all the help that the vibes needed. Just a little bit of a change. I don't know. We got 2 callers on hold. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to take these calls, whatever they're going to address, Brewers, Packers, whatever it may be, and then we're going to break at 5:30 or thereabout. And when we come back from that break, we are going to listen to cuts of Adam Stenavich. 2 on the offensive line, 1 on Jordan Love. Now, what happens after we listen to those cuts, whatever, it's up to you. And what happens before when we take these calls, up to you. But I swear the next segment is going to start with Adam Stenavich. Because I specifically I marked down the time in which he said these things. I'm like, we're going to discuss that tonight. So we're going to get into that in a bit. First, let's take 2 calls. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this? 1 call. As I was saying, 1 call. That's all. David Gruber, 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Hello, who's this?
Hey, Darnell.
Hey, Darnell, what's going on?
Hey, not a whole lot. I want to say yesterday's loss was kind of tough to stomach for the Brewers. Like, it just felt like they had that game in hand and they just kind of let it slip through the fingers a little bit.
The error by Adames was frustrating. That sucked. That was avoidable. Just throw it at his chest, bro. You got a big arm. You're a strong boy. You don't need to spike it at the feet of Rhys Hoskins. I agree.
Also, the 2-strike pitch selection of some of our pitchers just blows my mind that they think, all right, I got to 0-2. Let me just throw a 96-mile-per-hour fastball right down the middle and see what happens.
They won't see this coming. Let me throw it right down the middle. No, I know what you mean.
Like, that just killed me. But I also have to say this. The Jordan Love to Dontavian Wicks connection, I know it was already mentioned today, but, like, that just makes me feel some type of way. That gets me all hot and bothered and ready for the season start. So
he hit him in stride. I know it's just 1 throw. It's just 1 play, 1 possession, 1 game, but he hit him in stride, and that looked better than really any deep ball that we saw. Maybe from Jordan Love the whole year, but certainly until like after Thanksgiving.
tell you what, Grant, that was a $56 million throw right there. That's all I have to say. That was a $56 million throw.
I hope so. I really hope so. Because I tell you what, I watched Caleb Williams. I think the Bears are going to be good. JJ McCarthy even impressed me in his opener with the Vikings. Preseason, totally, against backups, totally. But still, like, I think this division is not going to be what it was 3 years ago or 4. You know what I mean? A lot of Aaron Rodgers' career, there might have been one team in the division that was good, but other than that, the other teams were down. Like, I don't know that there's a bad team in this division right now. So the Packers are going to have to be buttoned up, and Jordan Love's going to have to make a lot of throws like that one.
Well, I think that the NFC North is absolutely on like the up and up here.
On the come? Is that what you're going to say?
Yes. Yes.
Why is that fun? What are you laughing at?
They're on the up and up is what I was trying to say.
Okay,
on
sure.
the come up, whatever.
Okay, all right. All right. I'm just talking sports here. I don't know what's gotten into you, but that's fine. Continue. The NFC North, it's very good.
Yes, and they are going to only get better as a division because every single one of the quarterbacks in this division, or at least the future of the quarterbacks in this division, are young or younger, right? So there's room for improvement from the quarterback position, but all very positive outlooks on all 4 teams. So, yeah, it's going to be like a different viewing experience from, the Rodgers years where it was really felt Packer-centric, where I really do hope that still ends up being the same way this year, and then the future years here with Jordan Love. But, like, I just don't see it being Packer-centric. I see it being more, sometimes one person will have an MVP season on a team, and that's going to be the team that takes it, So, very excited for the upcoming NFC North stuff and the Packers, man. That throw from Jordan was just perfect. So that makes me feel really good.
I was going to say, it sounds like it's making you feel some kind of way. You keep going back to it. You keep thinking about it. Darnell, I appreciate it. And thank you for the call. I agree. The division is on the come up. Or on the come, or they're improving at a fast rate of speed, I guess, is the most complicated way, the most flowery way to say that. I agree. Look, Jordan Love hitting that throw to Dontavian Wicks, that's kind of got to be the minimum. You know what I mean? Like, I need him to hit that throw most of the time, almost all the time. Year one, first year as a starter, young, plucky, upstart team. We can take our time. Well, they don't quite have the connection down. Jordan Love doesn't quite have the feel down. That's fine. Now he's making a pile of money. He's making $55 million a year, and this team has expectations, and they have a window with good free agents that were signed to come in and help them win now. So that's a throw. It was a great throw. I'm going to need him to make that most of the time. Like, that's a throw that he needs to hit. Just basically every opportunity he has to make a throw like that, he's going to have to make it, because this year is not last year. And this contract was not his previous contract. And the expectations for this team are not the expectations they had for the team last year. Make the point? Really good Packers conversation. So let's go over to the text line. Another Brewers text. Said, I would have liked to trade Adames for starting pitching, but do you think the Hader trade might have had something to do with not trading them? Because the Brewers just flopped after that, so maybe they didn't want to disrupt Brewers playing. Sure. Yes. Yes to everything. I don't think the Brewers are going to be as gung-ho about selling guys when they're in first place. You know why? Because teams never do that. We act like the Brewers were just another team in a long history of teams that trade away one of their best players at the deadline despite being in first place. I mean, no team normally does that. So it's not a surprise that the Brewers didn't do it again, because historically teams don't do that. But certainly their negative experience with the Hader trade led to that, obviously. And also, like, I know there's a lot of people who think, well, I would have traded Adames for starting pitching. Who? And this was the problem with the Hader trade, too. Any team that's acquiring Hader or any team that's acquiring Adames in the middle of the season is a contender, because they're acquiring a good major league player who's a rental. That team isn't going to turn around and then give you a piece too, right? Like, oh, we'll give you our shortstop. You give me an amazing starting pitcher. Well, they need the amazing starting pitcher, because any team that's trying to acquire Adames midseason is trying to win. So I know, folks, and I'm sorry, I'm beating up on this text for a little bit. I apologize. It's not personal. But I just, everyone's always like, I would have traded Adames for a starting pitching. I don't know. I don't think that was in the cards. It was probably for prospects or a DL Hall type. Like, here's a guy who's close to the majors and has maybe had a cup of coffee, but not really. Like, you weren't getting whatever starting pitcher you were dreaming of getting for Adames. That was never going to happen. I said we were going to take 2 calls. The first one didn't count because the caller dropped off. So we'll take one more, then we'll get to Stenovich after this break. Wisco Sports Show, 608-321-1670. Who's this?
This is Justin from Eau Claire.
Hey, Justin. How's it going?
Good. I've got a few things, but I know you need to get to break and you want to get to
We got a couple
the
minutes.
quote, so I'll just kind of fire them off quick. First thing about the Brewers is what happened with the rotation? Because I was looking through it and it was supposed to be Colin Ray yesterday. I know DL Hall came back, but do you know if they shifted the rotation in a certain way, or are they going to be going with 6 people for a minute? Because I think Colin Ray is now slated to pitch tomorrow, unless they announce he's pitching tonight. I thought it was Peralta.
No, Peralta should be tonight, and I just saw the lineup. I know they have a doubleheader coming up, so that my guess would be it has something to do with that, and the fact that DL Hall is now healthy and available to pitch. And I am probably not the best person in the world to explain this to you. I really wish I could be. I am probably not, though. The roster machinations and the ups and the downs, and I'm not equipped. I would guess it has something to do with the doubleheader. I know there are interesting rules around what you can do with the doubleheader coming up, so that would be my guess. But I don't have a good answer for you, Justin. Sorry.
They could have also shifted it so he can pitch against the Dodgers, since he's one of the better pitchers right now out of the starting 5.
Colin Ray? Sure.
Yeah, Colin Ray, yeah. Second thing about the Brewers quick, and then I've got like one thought on the Packers, is we were talking about Joey Ortiz earlier. He doesn't need to be great. I feel like he just needs to be serviceable, even if it's only for a few years, because I don't think they have many options next year if Adames walks, because unless we're expecting Eric Brown Jr. or Brock Wilken or Cooper Pratt to take a huge step forward, you've got nobody to play third if he slides over to shortstop.
Well,
unless you run with Oliver Dunn and Monasterio.
Well, Oliver Dunn, he's still developing. Remember, he made his major league debut earlier this year. So I know there's an Oliver Dunn contingent, especially on Brewers Twitter. Let's not count him out. I think they'll have to do some scooting and some maneuvering and probably some adding in the offseason. My point is, if Joey Ortiz is more the player that we saw earlier in the year than he has been recently, you can slide him over to shortstop. You're going to have to get pop from third base, but third base is traditionally the place on the diamond you get your pop from, right, Justin? So like going out and either bringing a third baseman up or finding a third baseman to hit with a little pop is easier than finding a shortstop, because shortstops typically don't hit with pop. So Ortiz, I think, fits traditionally a little bit better there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Ortiz isn't the end all be all if Adames leaves. It's not like it's not like you stay the same team. They're going to have to do some work, but don't you feel a lot better about Adames going, knowing that Joey Ortiz is here, considering, isn't that a lot better than not having a Joey Ortiz and letting Adames walk? That's my point.
Oh, am I still on? I think I hit a dead spot.
No, you're good.
Okay.
What's your Packer point?
The Packer point is what do you think the receiver depth chart is going to look like with Dubose coming up? Because I feel they're not keeping more than probably 7 receivers or so. I feel like it's going to be Watson, Reed, Dobbs, Wicks, and then Melton, Heath, Dubose. And I think Toure is kind of the odd man out, but I could be wrong.
So I'm glad you brought this up, Justin. This is something that we discussed earlier on in the show. So this is what we call a professional reset for those who have tuned in since then. I think they'll keep 6. That would be my guess. And the point that I made earlier in the show is, you're right. Watson, Dobbs, Reed, Wicks are locks. And then you talk about Bo Melton, Toure, Dubose, right? I think they'll keep 6. And I would think long and hard about letting Grant Dubose go or putting him on the practice squad and instead rostering Toure or Heath. Because I think Dubose can do a lot of the same things that Heath can. I think he could be Malik Heath with more receiving upside. You got to remember, Dubose missed all of camp last year with a back, and they basically redshirted him. But he is a quintessential Packers wide receiver. His size, his strength, his relative athletic score, it all matches way more than it would with Toure, way more than it does with Melton. Right? So I think if we're selecting the last guy in the roster and the options are Toure, Heath, and Dubose, give me Dubose. And I'm not trying to overreact to Saturday, but he's a wide receiver that could turn into something. He could have more upside, where Heath's kind of just a blocker. Toure is probably just a special teamer. I don't know what we're still waiting to see from Toure that we haven't already seen. We've seen this movie a couple of times. I'd like to take my chances on somebody else. I think they keep 6. And if it were up to me, the 6th guy would be Grant Dubose. He looks awesome. He looks like the player that hopefully they thought they could be when they drafted him last year. He could be when they drafted him. 608-321-1670. Send me a text when we come back. Going to take a break from the calls for a little bit. We're going to hear from Adam Stenavich, Packers offensive coordinator, spoke to the media earlier today.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 5 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 4 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
It's the Wisco Sports Show. Appreciate you listening. I hope you had a great weekend. It was a beautiful weekend. Saturday, I think, was a Mount Rushmore day for my summer, at least as a sports fan. Right? Like, I was in Montana not that long ago. That's obviously pretty great. I'm not gonna act like a Saturday at my apartment watching the Olympics beats that. But in terms of sports viewership in the summer months, Saturday is about as good as it gets. We had the Olympic medal game, basketball, flowed right into the Packers game, which flowed right into the Brewers game, and then the Brewers game only took 2 hours. So we were off to bed, and it was efficient. I was pretty bored. I would have liked some more action. We got plenty of action on Friday, and the Brewers were lots of runs last week. Yesterday's game was more back and forth affair. I think something plaguing American sports fandom, and this is a tangent of all tangents before we hear from Adam Stenovich, but I think a little bit of a plague of the American sports fan is thinking that every game we ever turn on must be incredible entertainment specifically designed to cater to my wants and needs, when sometimes games just they're not good. Sometimes they're not good. There's 162 games in a baseball season. Some of them are going to stink. You got to take the good with the bad. Same with football. There's 17 games a year, or unless you ask Thomas Lacrosse, then there's 18. Not everyone is going to be a gem. This really becomes a problem in college football. When we have a bad playoff game, it's like, do we need to reinvent the sport completely to make sure I never have to watch a football game that isn't perfect ever again? It's just something that bothers me. Doesn't really apply here. It just came to mind thinking and talking about the Brewer game, which took like 2 hours and 9 minutes. I think that was it on Saturday night, but we got to go to bed early. I didn't. I stayed up playing video games until 3 a.m., but that's beside the point. Text the show 608-321-1670. You can tweet me at Wisco Grant. And if you want to comment on the video stream, that's a thing starting today. We're up on Facebook and YouTube. I keep checking throughout the show. It sounds like everything's coming through. It looks the way that I wanted it to look. We're waiting on Twitter. The folks at the X headquarters, are they're reviewing my page. You want to make sure everything's on the up and up. I don't know. But we should be up on Twitter tomorrow. Whatever. All right. Adam Stenovich. Been teasing this for a while. First, thing number one of three things that jumped out to me. The first thing was talking about the usage of Sean Ryan, who looked really, really good on Saturday. Looked really good. He's kind of been their maybe sixth offensive lineman, mostly playing interior spots. Here's Adam Stenovich talking about Sean Ryan's role on this team.
Yeah, I think right now, obviously, he's in a competition for a starting position. And the big thing for us is to get him ready at several positions in case he isn't, a starter. You want him to be a versatile backup that could play any of those three interior spots. So big camp for him, just obviously competing for that starting role at right guard and then getting ready to be a backup if that happens to be his role at center or left guard.
I'm wondering how this offensive line looks if Jordan Morgan misses extended time at right guard, because guard's kind of Sean Ryan's thing. And Sean Ryan provides something to this line that I don't know that they have anywhere else. He's a little bit of a road grader, to quote the great Bill Michaels. He's a little bit of a road grader. They don't typically have road graders. They have taller, longer, leaner, thinner, more pass protection-oriented guys. Sean Ryan is a little bit of an outlier on this line, and that might be a good thing, especially if they're pulling guards or moving guys in the running game or getting out in the screen game. Like, he provides something that they're not necessarily getting from the other spots. If Jordan Morgan misses extended time, does that allow Sean Ryan to maybe implant himself at right guard? What if Josh Myers misses some time, or Sean Ryan ends up playing some center in one of these preseason games and he looks really good, right? But the idea, and you heard that from Stenovich, they're trying him at different spots, seeing if there's a role for him to start. And then it sounds like most likely, if all things play out according to, I think, the grand design of the coaching staff and what they've seen so far, I think Sean Ryan ends up being the first guy off the bench to play either guard spot or maybe center. I don't think Josh Myers is that amazing. The Packers have shown a lot of belief in him, or spoken a lot of belief about him at the podium. But Adam Stenavich talked about Sean Ryan at center. He's like, don't take it for granted that he can just step in and do that and play that position.
Did a good job. That's not an easy thing. It's pretty underrated, being able to go out there and make the calls, snap the ball to the quarterback without any exchange issues, things like that, and just being able to run the offense. So I was, happy with what I saw.
Adam Stenavich is so no nonsense, which I think sometimes is why you get the good stuff from Adam Stenavich. There was a player last year. Oh, who was it? Oh, God, no, I'm not going to remember who it was. He put him on blast. He basically talked about how some players are built to compete and some players are built to earn their spot and some aren't. Who is he talking about? Oh, it was is Yash Nijman. That's who it was. Remember that? Like Adam Stenavich is so monotone and robotic. He will say things, I think, sometimes without realize that he's given us a little something. He's giving us a little something to chew on. Where Matt LaFleur and I think Joe Barry historically, although Joe Barry once did introduce us last year to the idea of yards after the catch, or YAC, as they call it in the building, pioneers at 1265 on Joe Barry's staff. I'm interested to see how they use Sean Ryan continuously in the preseason, right? Right now, he said how they're using him is, making sure he could be potentially competing for a starting spot and then be the first replacement off the bench in terms of an injury. If an interior guy goes down, Sean Ryan seems like the guy, even at center. If a tackle goes down, then it gets a little more interesting. Is there a third tackle, or as we say, a swing tackle? And we'll hear Adam Stenavich talk about that in a sec. Or do they kick someone from the inside out and then replace that inside guy with Sean Ryan? Here's Adam Stenavich. This is thing number 2 that jumped out to me. Talking about the third tackle. And I believe I left the full question and the full answer in here. So listen to this. Talk about the first tackle off the bench if Walker or Tom were to go down with an injury.
At swing tackle, what do you guys want to see from that group in terms of someone starting to differentiate themselves? Like,
I think the biggest thing with that is just who the most reliable guy is. And it's not necessarily, you want a guy who can obviously play both positions in case something happens in a game on either side. But it's just who's the most reliable guy. The number one thing you're looking for is pass protection. You got to protect the quarterback. That is a tackle's biggest responsibility there. So that's the biggest thing we look at. And then obviously in the run game, how do you fit in the scheme? How hard are you playing? How productive are you? All that stuff. So, it's just basically finding the most reliable guy on the left side and the right side.
There was a moment early on in that answer, and this is what caught my ear earlier when we were playing this presser on Bill's show. He said, we're looking for who the most reliable guy is, not necessarily. And then he cut himself off and started saying something else. I want to know what he was going to say. I want to know what word was on the tip of his tongue. Or maybe he didn't have a word, which is why he stopped. Maybe that's why he cut himself off and started saying something else. He said, we want to know who the most reliable guy is, not necessarily the what? Most athletic? Most experienced? Andre Dillard, the one with the most pedigree? Maybe Elton Jenkins, someone with prior experience? What? I need to know. We're looking for the guy who's most reliable, not necessarily the guy who's what were you going to say? Curious. Otherwise, the rest of the answer is like, well, we want the guy who's going to hold up in pass pro. Okay. Let me write that down. You want the guy who you want the guy who will keep your quarterback from getting lit up. That's all right. Good coaching. Good. Glad we got that on the record. Lastly, and I thought this was interesting, Adam Stenavich talking about Jordan Love's deep passing. It looks better this year.
So I know not all deep balls are called shots. Obviously, there's scramble situations, but Jordan's percentage went up as the season went on last year.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think? Where did he get better when it came to throwing the ball, completing balls, down the field?
I think a lot of it with him, early last year, he was kind of forcing balls down the field. And once he, just understood, okay, it might not be there, bang, hit your check down. So he was hitting a lot more check downs. And then when the open balls were there, he was hitting it. You know what I mean? He wasn't forcing it. So I think it was just basically taking what the defense gives you and having that understanding of being patient. I think that was big for him.
So I'm glad Stenavich said this because last year, specifically on Bill's show during last season, I remember this. we were losing our mind a little bit. It's like, Jordan Love is supposed to have this big arm, supposed to have this huge arm, and he's underthrowing everyone down the field, right? All of these deep shots, he's underthrowing. He's big arm. He's got this huge arm. That's why he was drafted, his arm talent. Where is it? Where's the arm talent? Well, we come to know through Adam Stenavich today, and I wouldn't be totally shocked if one of these Packers reporters takes this into a future press conference and asks Matt LaFleur about it, or asks others, maybe ask Jordan Love about it at some point, where it's like, hey, Stenavich said this. Can you add, give us something more down this road? It's mental, and it's decision-making, right? It's not just making a good deep ball. It's knowing when to throw a deep ball, right? And it makes sense. This also tracks with what Matt LaFleur said last year. We got to a certain point in the season. It was probably somewhere before the Pittsburgh game or before the Chargers game, where I think someone asked Matt LaFleur, hey, what does Jordan Love need to do to get to the place he needs to get to? And Matt LaFleur basically said, well, he just needs to rip it. It's time to take the gloves off. It's time to just let it rip. And I think mentally and from a decision-making standpoint, that's where a lot of Jordan Love's improvement came from last year. So it's good to know that it wasn't 100% his arm, because in Lambeau, in the wind, in Chicago, in the wind, like, you're going to need to make some of those throws, big-time throws late in the year in order to win games and win the division. So it's good to know. That made me feel good. It's like, oh, so it was a little decision-making, and it was, it was mental. It wasn't just his arm, because his arm looks like, I thought this guy had a big arm. I thought he had arm talent. Why is he underthrowing every deep pass he's attempting? So that's Adam Stenavich earlier today. If you have time and you really want to get in the weeds, I'd recommend you go watch the presser. I thought it was pretty interesting. Stenavich is not a colorful speaker, let's say, but he normally gives you some pretty good stuff, whereas Matt LaFleur is not colorful or interesting. At least Adam Stenavich is a little interesting, and that's not personal commentary on Matt LaFleur. That is just me as a radio host calling a spade a spade. Let's take a 3-minute break. We'll come back and wrap up the Wisco Sports Show next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
It's the Wisco Sports Show. Last couple of minutes, we'll wrap things up. I'm really looking forward to tomorrow. I look forward to this show every day, don't get me wrong. I love doing the show. I have a super cool job. I'm really excited for Bill's show tomorrow. We're going to have Ian O'Connor on at 10:30. He just put out the new Rogers book, or is about to release it. I got an advance copy, so did Bill. I read a bunch of it this weekend. I'm going to try to read some more tonight. We'll see. Should have plenty of time in the middle of the game. We've got fastball Freddie or full count Freddie is going to get the call. Should be lots of downtime mid at bats where Freddie's pacing around the mound between uncompetitive pitches. So I'm going to try to read some. But Ian O'Connor, legendary sports writer, biographer, going to join us to discuss his Rogers book. It's called Out of the Darkness. I have it right here. If you're watching on the live stream, which is new today, should be on Twitter tomorrow. They're reviewing my account. That's what it looks like. Very good book. I've learned a lot about his family, how they came to be what they were, and how the relationships worked out. Was very interesting. Also, really interesting to read about Rogers as a high school player. As long as we watched the Packers, I never really went back to college, a little bit to college, but it was really interesting how he moved around. His family moved around. His dad had different jobs, up to Oregon and then back down to Chico, and learning the type of player he was in college. It's always funny. Like, how did Aaron Rodgers not get any D1 offers? Like, well, he was barely 6 feet. His hands were massive. His feet were massive. It took forever to grow. This happens in sports all the time. How did Michael Jordan not make the team? Well, he grew like 6 inches. That's a senior going to college. You know what I mean? So it's interesting. I would get the book when it comes out. I'll have Ian O'Connor on tomorrow at 10:30. Brewers and Dodgers tonight. Full count Freddie on the hill. Tyler Black is available, I think, in case of emergency. I think that's Kershaw. I'll talk to you all. Friday at 4. Thanks.